Alright, welcome back to the Adobe Audition editing, and today we're going to be talking about just a quick run through of how to put everything together that we've taught from the previous videos. So let's jump right into it. So first thing we want to do is go to a multi-track and add in a new session. So I'm just going to make this test and hit OK, and we're going to go to a multi-track session here. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and import our files. So I'm just going to hit Control I and import these three files like so. And we can see all of those get in. Now I'm just going to select them by holding down Control and selecting each bit, drag them in, and it's going to complain at me, oh, I don't have the right sample rate. So I'm going to hit OK, and it's going to copy all of those and add them in just like I wanted. So if we go ahead and zoom in here and drag all of these over to the end here, we can see that we've got...
well, that's a deep subject. Test number 1.
And so those are the three clips that we're going to be wanting with. So I'm going to arrange them in the way that I want. First of all, this is a sound effect, so I'm going to bring this down to a second track. That's usually helpful for recording this, and then I'm just going to bring this as the correct order like so. Now I'm going to zoom in. Well, first thing I'm going to do is going to cut this bit because I don't need the double ding that's on this part of the sound. So I'm going to cut this right here, just like that, with Control K, and just delete that bit right there. The next thing I'm going to do is just drag this down because I know it's going to be much too loud for what I'm working with. And then I'm going to zoom in here so that I can see things a little bit better and align it to just about where I want. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this bit here because I don't want quite so much silence. So I'm just going to do that and bring that over there and align this. You can use this tool right here to align it how I want and decrease the amplitude, and we'll give it a listen to see how this sounds like.
Test number 1. Well, that's a deep subject.
All right, so the next thing we're going to do is on this whole track here, I just want to get a noise reduction. So instead of going to each clip, what you can actually do is go over to the effects rack here and click track effects. And this will affect the entire track no matter how many clips you put on it. So same thing as clip effect, you just go ahead and click this arrow right there, and we're going to go to noise reduction, denoise, and we're just going to let it do its thing like that. And that's the first part of the track, or in the effects rack. I will say something I haven't mentioned in previous things is as you add effects, it's going to add them in order of the numbers here. So the first thing we're going to do is denoise, and then we can add in maybe an EQ or some other effect as we see fit. So that's something you have to be aware of. Sometimes if you put effects in the wrong order, it will not work the way you would intend it to. So all you have to do to change that is just drag these up and down wherever you need. It's pretty straightforward. Next thing we want to do is go ahead and take this out of this clip here.
Well.
So we're going to press this button here, which is going to solo this track. And essentially that means all of the other tracks are going to be muted except for the track right here. So that allows us to hear better.
Well.
So that's exactly the So we're going to zoom in real close and click right there. And we're going to cut right there with Control K. And then cut over here as well, Control K, and just delete that right there. Drag this back over like so. And now we've got that piece of audio cut out of the middle. And one other thing, I'm going to just add a little bit of a crossfade for this audio there so that it fades nicely and we don't hear a cut. We're going to de-solify this, and that'll bring everything back. And I'll just go over these buttons real quick here. You can mute this track specifically, or we can solo it, which will mute every other track. And then we've got this R here, which allows you to see the input and output from this track. I'm going to be honest, I haven't ever used this. I don't know what it's for specifically on Audition, so I just ignore it. Yeah. And yeah, so now let's take a listen to what we have.
Test number 1. Well, that's a deep subject.
All right, so we're going to do a little bit of EQ on this track, and then we're going to add it into the track effects and just do a little bit of an EQ like so. And we'll just do this kind of sound like that.
Test number 1.
And that sounds pretty good, so I'm just going to close that out, and that'll be our EQ. And then we're going to add in a little bit of an amplify. Usually you want to do this later on in the effects rack because other things can amplify it, so you don't want to make it too loud. So we're just going to listen to it.
Test number 1.
All right, that's a little bit too much. You see down in the bottom corner down here, it clipped. So we're not going to add as much. We're going to do like that.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
That sounds pretty good. And one other thing that I'm going to mention is I'm going to add in a compressor, which I like to do. Single band compressor, and we're just going to do that. And I'm actually going to go back and put this before the amplify, and then I'm going to, sorry, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep the amplify here, increase the amplify just a little bit, and you'll notice the compressor will do the work to make it not clip. So I'm going to do that.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
All right, and that compressor made it so it doesn't clip, which is something that we want. Now this ding again is a little bit too loud, so I'm just going to bring it down using this. I could go into a clip effect and add in an amplify and de-amplify it the same way, but this is a lot quicker, so that's something that you want to do. I'm going to add in a fade. This really doesn't matter for this clip, but sometimes it does. I'm going to bring that like that. Sometimes you'll have a clip that needs a fade in. I'm just going to do it out of habit because that's something I usually like to do, and it helps transition things nicely. I'm also going to, select these two clips by holding down Control and add a little bit of a crossfade as well between the two audio files. Then we can play it again.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
And I'm just going to adjust the timing a little bit.
Test number 1. That's a...
And we actually don't need the crossfade because it's pretty much silence in between. So we can just fade it out, which is something that you get into a good habit of doing. Just fade out your audio if it goes to silence.
Number 1. That's a deep subject.
And there you go. So that's most of the editing done, and I'm just going to go over a couple things to make sure it sounds good. And then we'll add in a little bit of, just for fun, some reverb.
Test number 1.
So we're just going to go to this spot right here, this clip specifically, and add in some reverb, full reverb. Gonna okay with that. And then let's take a listen.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
Well, now we want to increase the amplitude just because it seems like we should.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
And there you go. That's a basic clip mosh pit together of just some random stuff, and that's how you get it to sound nice and good. Obviously, you can go through and spend much more time on making sure all the things are lined up how you want, making sure all the EQs and compressors are exactly how you want, but that's just a basic rundown of how to go through editing some clips. All right, now we're going to show you how to export. So we're going to go to File and Export like that. And you're going to want to, go to the multi-track mix down and do the entire session right here. And there you go. It'll give you some file name stuff. So I test mix down, it'll give it a place where it'll go, and you can pick the format. I'm just going to go with the WAV format, which is lossless, and just going to go with that. Then I'm just going to hit OK. And there you go. And we can go and play this file in just a second. All right, and so I found this file and brought it up to my desktop, and I can just double click on it.
Test number 1. That's a deep subject.
And now it is just a single file, and I'm able to play it just like that. And there you go. That is my basic rundown of Adobe Audition. Hopefully you found it useful, and have a lovely day. Bye.